those of you who don't know me, I'm Jane Deville, and I'm a research fellow within the business school. I don't actually sit within any of the departments. I sit within professional services centrally, so sometimes I feel a little bit sort of out of the loop with some of the things that are going on. And I'm aware that quite a lot of people often don't know who I am. So I'm going to talk today about a project that I'm involved in. It's a European project. It's looking at digital skills, improving digital skills and access to digital skills, particularly in rural areas. I'm particularly interested in the difference between services in urban and rural areas, and how we can improve that, be that sort of digital services or health services as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about background to the project that I'm involved in. I'm going to talk about a guide we've produced that's about setting up a digital hub, and I'll talk about what digital hub is in a moment. How that guide's been used, so some of the impacts that we've had from the research, and then some next steps. So again, we've recently got some more funding, and over the past 2 weeks I've been carrying out interviews with hub managers, and I'm going to show you some of the results from that as well. So it's been a very quick analysis, nothing in depth as yet, so my first thoughts on that. Okay, so the European project that I'm involved in is called Connecting Remote Areas, and it's connecting remote areas with digital infrastructure. It's a partnership, it's funded by Deville, and it's a partnership of private sector organisations, academic partners and local and regional authorities across the North Sea region. So you can see that takes in Norway, areas of Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Germany. Well, we've then got partners in the Netherlands, Belgium and the UK. Lots and lots of different projects within Deville. They're all around improving services within that area, but obviously whatever we find could be applied anywhere else as well. Primarily the areas that we work with are rural. When we go for project meetings, it often takes us a day to get there because these little places, you get a flight somewhere, then you have to have a flight somewhere else, and then it's a 4-hour train journey. It's lovely to go and see the other areas, but it is one of the problems of working with people working in rural areas. Okay, so the whole idea of the project is about developing solutions to help municipalities and regions to thrive in a digital world. So it's a really applied project. All of the projects are actually carried out by local authorities, so be that the equivalent of district and county councils. We spend some time with them working out what they're going to do. We then go in and evaluate and turn that information as well into policy briefs that can be used by other areas. Okay, so there's a range of pilot projects within the core project, and they're all about reducing the rural digital divide. So that's the difference between the services that people get in urban areas and the services people get in rural areas. And you might immediately think that's probably just to do with the provision of services, so infrastructure. So generally in urban areas we have good access to broadband, we have good access to mobile and digital technology as well. In rural areas that's often not the case. Even in the UK there are lots of places that don't have access. In some areas of Europe, sort of when you get into sort of Norway and Sweden, in some cases that's even worse. But we also, as well as looking at the infrastructure, we look at skills and services as well. So a recent report found that about 21% of people in the UK, and this is across rural and urban areas, don't have the digital skills for everyday life. So whether that's to do with whether they can actually use health services online, whether they can bank online, all those things that probably a lot of us take for granted, there's a lot of people that still can't do that. More and more things are becoming digital, and people just need often these really basic skills but don't have access to anywhere to provide them. So within the project, there's these 3 pillars, so infrastructure, services and skills, and there's a range of pilots, there's about 11 or 12 pilots that took place between 2018 and 2020 across these countries. So they range really from infrastructure projects. The top one, cross-border fibre sharing, was looking at a Swedish broadband provider putting their fibre actually across the border into a really remote area of Norway, where they couldn't actually get fibre broadband from their Norwegian provider. They put a cable under a lake, and there were lots of other issues around whether the people in Norway were going to get Swedish television through this broadband connection, and issues like that had to be resolved. Service pilots range from things like car sharing. So one of the municipalities set up an app that was to do with car sharing. Again, they were trying to reduce pollution and the number of journeys in their rural area, or just for people to be able to easily get to work where there wasn't provision of public transport. Another one around e-health looked at dementia care and providing dementia care online to people with dementia and their families living in rural areas where again it was taking hours for people to actually travel to and from. And finally, the skills pilots. This is where we kind of have two roles in the project. One role is to sort of advise on the projects and to go in and monitor the projects and then produce documents to share with other municipalities about the projects. But in the first part of the core project, we also had a role about testing fixed and mobile digital hub concept, which might sound more exciting than it is, but I'm going to talk a little bit about that digital hub, the digital hub concept, what that is and how some municipalities have used that. So, what is a digital hub? So this is what we needed to define to start with what a digital hub was. So we came up with this definition. It's a physical space which can be fixed or mobile, focused on digital connectivity, digital skills and/or emerging technologies. The space is available to the public, businesses or both, with the aim of enhancing the local digital environment. So it's a bland statement. It covers a lot of spaces. So just looking at the pictures that we've got here, this is a picture of a co-working space in Lincoln. It's the only co-working space I think that's set up like this in Lincoln. It's called Mosaic. It's relatively new. It was set up just before the pandemic. It's not part of this project, but it's a good example of a space in what is quite a rural, although it's in the city, it serves a rural area around it. So it might be that these spaces are these co-working spaces where people can go and use from time to time when they need an office space or a meeting space. We've got, this hub is also in Lincolnshire. This is the Horncastle Technology Hub. This was part of the core project. They have a range of technology there, 3D printers, laser cutters, that people and businesses can go and use, sometimes on a free basis, sometimes payment once you've had a certain number of hours there. This top one is similar. This is a hub in Denmark, in Deville. It's based within a library. So again, they have a range of, they have PCs that people can go in and use, as we often do in our libraries here. But they also have some equipment, such as this, that people can go in and use as well. Often, I'll talk about that in a minute, but often hubs like these are linked to universities or businesses and have a big range of technology that people can use. Then up at the top we have the digital bus, which is also part of the core project. This is Danish, and our partners in Denmark are very proud of their digital bus. It gives people information really. They have some laptops on board, but it gives people information about the benefits really of connecting and developing these digital skills. And they take it to rural villages, rural shows. So, for example, you might see it at the Lincolnshire show. Get people on board, show them what they can do with digital and how that might influence their day-to-day life. So it doesn't have to be a fixed space. It can be a mobile space. It can be focused on digital skills, technology, or just a space for people to go and connect to a high-speed broadband connection. So from this, we came up with this idea of 4 typologies. So the whole idea really of the work is to try and help policymakers decide what type of digital hub they might need in their area or how their area might benefit from having one. So we came up with these 4 typologies, which range from a public internet access point, which we'd now consider maybe a library to be. There's not as many of those. You used to find a lot of internet cafes where you could just go in and use the internet if you didn't have a connection, but now people have phones often. We don't see those as often. But public internet access points still in a very rural location where there's no mobile connectivity may well still be quite important, although we see fewer of them. Through the incubator co-working space, which is the Mosaic hub in Lincoln, which provides space for meeting and networking with a high-speed broadband connection. Through to the advice, training and support space, again, there will be a high-speed internet connection, but we'll focus more on providing people and businesses with general ICT skills. Through to these sector-specific spaces that often have a lot of high-tech equipment, 3D printers, scanners, laser cutters, robotics. They might be based within a business or within a university. What we do find is that we can't neatly fit hubs into one of these four categories. There's often an overlap. So, for example, often incubator co-working spaces also provide training and support, as do the sector-specific spaces. So to help policymakers look at how a hub can help them, what they're going to do, how they're going to set up, what is a hub, what can they do, we worked with our core partners to develop a digital hub guide called Be Bold, Be Innovative, Be a Digital Hub. I haven't got one to show you, I'm afraid, but it is actually a paper document of about sort of 20 to 30 pages. It talks about the issues around rural and urban and digital. It gives examples of why you might want to set up a hub and how a hub can help with what we can now probably term levelling up, so bringing rural areas up to the same level as some of the urban areas. It's then got some ideas in there around how you might set up a hub. And we came up with these 10 steps. You'll notice they all begin with the letter S. We're very proud that it took us quite a long time to come up with 10 things that we could think of that all begin with the letter S. Oh my goodness. Yeah, 10 steps. Under those 10 steps, you don't have to go through them one by one. Just pointers. There's lots of questions and stuff that you might need to consider. What we have found, though, as we've been talking to people, is that there are gaps. There are gaps in knowledge around sustainability of hubs, there are gaps in knowledge about how to promote them, and there are gaps in knowledge about sources of funding as well. So there's some key factors that we probably needed some more information about. I won't talk about how it's been used. We have used it. People have used the hub guide to set up hubs and inform the type of hub that they're going to use. We're providing support for a number of district councils and obviously municipalities through the core project. Some of the work was part of the Ref Impact case study, but there are still these gaps in knowledge. So, over the past 2 weeks, myself and Liz Price, my colleague, have been interviewing people from a range of digital hubs, both in the UK and across Europe. So these are some of the hubs that we've worked with. And we've been talking to their managers about how they set them up, where they found their funding from, how they make them sustainable, so that we can really try and add a bit more knowledge into the hub guide. We're aware that we haven't set up a digital hub. We've not been there and done it. So as well as having these ideas from going out and talk and seeing what we need to speak to actual hub managers as well. So what we have found, we are currently looking at, I've tried to put into sort of 4 key themes just to present to you today. And it's going to be a very, very quick present through that because I've probably talked far too much about the actual project. So I'm going to open it all up and then I'll talk about one of the aspects of that. So funding and hub offer, we found there are many different models for startup funding, whether that be local authority funding, some people had self-funded these hubs as well, European funding. A lot of the hubs in the UK previously had European funding, whether that be Lead Plus or some other type. Unfortunately, that's not available anymore. Lots of people suggest you start small and grow a hub alongside its user community. So a lot of these hubs went out and bought a lot of equipment to start with. And what they actually found is that actually people that came in only wanted to learn about how to use a laser cutter. And then all of the other equipment just sat there. But they then said, oh, actually what we would like is one of those electronic embroidery machines. So it was really important that when people were setting up, they talked to the people, they the community to decide what is needed. And consider membership or subscription. Okay, so the importance of a committed and passionate leader to advocate for the hub. Lots of these hubs have one person or two people who really saw the benefit of digital and were able to go out and promote it. Mobile UK did some work recently with county councils, and they found that if county councils had a digital champion, everybody on the council, I think it was they were 4 times more likely to invest money in digital as if they didn't have this digital champion. That's a similar case for the hub development as well. Consider co-location service aggregation to maintain a user base. Again, you saw that in the Deville example where it was based in a library. Some of them are based in universities. Just having that initial foot forward just really helps. And ensure you have skilled staff. You don't want people coming in to use the equipment and then people not knowing how to use it or maintain it. Some of these things were things that we knew already, and some of them seem really obvious, but they're not all in one place, and not all of the hub managers have actually thought about all of these things. So I think the benefit of having them all together is quite great as well. So the hub as a community. Digital hubs don't work if they're just a space with some equipment in. They need to have a community around them as well. And lots of the hub managers, and particularly the most successful hubs that we talked about this sense of community. And sometimes that was just around how they built the space. So I talked to a gentleman yesterday in Blackburn who talked about they had an old shop, and he said when they moved in, it was just like a blank space, and they showed people around to try and get them to take on some of the co-working spaces, and nobody wanted the space. So they had to rethink about what that space is like and work with people to try and improve just the space and what the space looks like. Another lady, when I asked her what was the most important thing about her hub, she said plants. Because again, they were the thing that people often commented. She also had a dog. It was quite a friendly kind of co-working space. Linked to other hubs for support and knowledge exchange. For us as academics, that's obvious that you need to link and work with other people. It's not always obvious for people in digital hubs. So there's a couple. Impact Hub is an international network, and this is the Fab Lab symbol. That's a network of hubs that have technical equipment but with access and public access as well. And empower users to use the technology and don't do it for them. The whole point of these hubs is to improve people's skills, not to say, yes, come in and I'll print off 3 things off the digital printer and then you can take them away. So it's about having people come in and actually use the equipment. And finally, marketing sustainability. You need to ensure there's a realistic business eye. Some of the hubs I've spoken to aren't sustainable. Some of them, in fact 2 that I've spoken to, are sort of saying we don't know where to find other funding from. That's hopefully some of our work will help with that. We don't know how to make this a viable business venture. So it's thinking outside the box. One of the hubs had a laser cutter, and they noticed that people came in, they learned how to use it, and then they went away and bought their own laser cutter, but they were struggling to get hold of the materials. So the hub has now started selling the laser cutter materials, so that they bring in some income alongside the actual hub, and it also maintains that sense of community. These people are still coming in to the hub to obtain their equipment as well. Use promotion around events, so setting up clubs for that networking to build up that community. Persistent marketing is often required to remind people the hub exists, but don't underestimate the power of word of mouth, which a lot of the hubs, once they're established, word of mouth is the main thing keeping going. So although they're quite different, the hubs that we've spoken to, they do range from the PIAPs, the public internet access points through the co-working spaces all the way through to the sector-specific spaces. There are some key themes and messages I think policymakers can use when they're deciding whether this is a route that they want to go down and how it will benefit their community. So our next steps is to refine the analysis and for me to go back and actually really read things back through and do some proper in-depth analysis of that. And then we're hoping to add the insights and some of the case studies that we've got into the hub guide So the hub guide's also digital, so it's fairly easy to update, and we know that core partners use it, and we share it with municipalities around them too. We're also currently working with the Open Innovation team to collaborate with policymakers, so hopefully our work will sort of improve visibility as well. That's it. Thank you very much. Hopefully that's within my time.
Thank you very much. Questions? Comments?
I've got a quick one.
Yeah.
Do you think the internet from the sky, you know, Elon Musk's internet, do you think it's kind of digital hubs? Is it a hindrance or and it could undo them, or a benefit that's going to connect them out in rural areas?
Well, I'm guessing it's probably going to be a benefit because more people will have access to that digital technology, and I think anything that means that more people get access is a good thing. And I don't think it will hinder digital hubs because although often we put this infrastructure in, people still don't know how to use it. So I think this whole idea of getting people in to actually learn skills, you know, I've spoken to hubs where they've got digital equipment, people come and use it, and then they have started a business in that local area because they've been in the hub and used the equipment. So I think whatever infrastructure is put there, we still need that skills development alongside as well.
Can I just add, apparently there's one in, I think it's the same setup in Sheffield, and apparently apart from being a digital hub, we're going to go and use technology, but so they pay a small subscription, it's about £5 per week, but in there also, as well as just go individually and just use the materials that we need, they also have just small talks about something. So everybody will know, okay, there will be something else, maybe during a break that everybody can take. And apparently, I'm not entirely sure where in Sheffield it is, but my son-in-law is using it because, yeah, he has to travel to Loughborough University, so instead of going there, sometimes he works instead of from home from there. And I said that it's just, you can just spend the whole day there working, but at the same time, you have a little bit, I don't know, that.
Yeah, and I guess that is around that development of that community.
Yes, exactly, yes, yeah.
As well.
So you don't feel, I think
that was really important. One of the hubs had, you know, it's not just about there being people around. People did talk about it being good for their mental health, that they were able to go and work somewhere rather than, particularly now in that work from home culture. On a more practical level, one of the hubs had something called a learning tree, which was literally a big stick of a tree on the wall, and if you've got a question or something you want to resolve, you put a post-it note on, and then they hope that then somebody else within that community would connect with you to help answer that question or resolve that issue. So it is about building that sense of community at these hubs as well, not just providing the space with the equipment in.
No, just comment. It's a comment on because I think one of the interesting things and what's opened my eyes is this idea. It's not just about, when I think of digital skills, I think of being able to use a computer, but the idea that, you know, you've got laser cutters, laser printers, and those kinds of forms of almost kind of small scale manufacturing, particularly in rural areas, I think opens up this huge opportunity, as you say, that kind of advanced skills development, so people can create their. Yeah. I'd love to get my hands on a laser printer, so I'm coming from that kind of perspective. But you know, that it does then open up those opportunities for people to develop their skills, and then you say go maybe get their own, but still be connected to the hub.
And it's a constant movable feast about what technology
exactly.
there is as well. So this week I've spoken to somebody and they'd got, I can't remember what the machine was called, but a machine where you could put hard plastic in and you could then reuse that plastic. So effectively it chopped it up. I don't know exactly what it did to it, but I assume it chopped it up in some way and then you could reuse it to create something else. So there's that whole, you know, that opens up a whole new world of recycling and sustainability, as well as, you know, just learning about digital skills. Yeah.
Yeah, last question, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's very interesting, you know, congratulations. And for example, one of the pillars of the circular economy, and there is a lot of funding in that area, is virtualization and this kind of example you gave. So if somehow you could show that the hubs also contribute to a more digital society, so less waste, so you could also apply for funding related to circular economy, LA MacArthur Foundation.
Okay, that's quite interesting. I might come and have a chat to you about that, because the hub that have this plastic recycling, they're quite innovative, and they have funding from lots of different places. They're a maker space, so which is around being sort of creative, and lots of ideas, lots of different levels of funding. But yeah, I'd be interested in where they might be able to tap into, because they've started doing that recycling.
Okay.
as well.
I know that Scotland has, I think it's 18 million pounds for circular economy related businesses. So yeah,
That's great. Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. Very interesting.